This channel is not here to entertain you, it is here to document what was never fully explained, what was never fully understood, and what was never meant to be forgotten. There are places on earth where stories end without resolution, where people vanish without explanation, where evidence remains, but answers do not. Everything you will hear in this archive is based on real events, recovered reports, witness accounts, investigation files, and fragments of truth that survive time. But truth is rarely complete, and sometimes what is missing is far more important than what remains. You are now entering the Nocteryn archive, a record of disappearances, unsolved cases, and incidents that continue to disturb investigators to this day. Some of these stories have logical explanations, some are still debated, and some has never been explained at all. But one question will follow every file in this archive. Not what happened, but why it was never fully understood. The first case begins now.
Imagine waking up in the middle of the night. The wind outside is howling across an endless frozen mountain. The temperature has dropped far below freezing. Snow crashes against the walls of your tent. Darkness stretches for miles in every direction. You're not near a town. You're not near a road. You're not near anyone who can help. Then suddenly, something happens. Something so terrifying that you don't stop to put on your boots. You don't grab your coat. You don't even use the entrance of the tent. Instead, you take a knife and cut your way through the fabric from the inside. Then you run straight into the darkness, straight into the temperatures cold enough to kill within hours. The question is simple. What could possibly be waiting outside that tent that seemed less terrifying than staying inside it? Tonight, we're examining one of the most chilling real-life mysteries ever recorded. The story of 9 experienced hikers who entered the mountains and never returned. Chapter 1. The beginning of the expedition. In January of 1959, a group of young hikers set out on an ambitious winter expedition across the northern Ural Mountains of what was then the Soviet Union. These weren't inexperienced tourists. They were skilled adventurers with years of training and experience in extreme winter conditions. The expedition was led by a 23-year-old student named Igor Dyatlov. The journey was expected to be difficult, but not impossible. The group carried cameras, they kept journals, they documented their route. What they didn't know was that these records would eventually become the final traces of their lives. One member of the expedition turned back early because of illness. At the time, it seemed like bad luck. Later, it became clear that his decision may have saved his life. The remaining 9 continued deeper in the mountains, toward a place known as Kolat Skyal, a name that translates to Dead Mountain. Chapter 2. The Last Night. By February 1st, weather conditions had begun to deteriorate. Powerful winds swept across the slopes. Visibility became increasingly poor. The group decided to stop and establish camp on an exposed mountainside. As darkness fell, the temperature continued dropping. Inside the tent, the hikers settled in for the night. Outside, the mountains disappeared into a sea of blackness. And sometime during those hours, something happened. Nobody knows exactly what. There were no survivors, no witnesses, no record. Only evidence left behind. Evidence that would puzzle investigators for decades. At some point during the night, the hikers suddenly abandoned their tent, not through the entrance, but by cutting open the side from within. Then they left. without proper clothing, without essential equipment, without supplies, and stepped directly into a deadly snowstorm. Chapter 3: The Search. When the group failed to return, search teams were sent into the mountains. Days passed, then weeks. Eventually, rescuers discovered the campsite. What they found was deeply unsettling. The tent was still standing, partially covered in snow. Inside were personal belongings, food, winter gear, boots, everything necessary for survival, everything except the hikers themselves. The investigators noticed something unusual: footprints. A series of footprints leading away from the tent, into the darkness, into the wilderness. The footprints suggested that the group had not been running. They appeared to be walking, calmly, almost deliberately, as if they had left willingly. And that made the mystery even more disturbing. Chapter 4: The Discoveries. The first bodies were found near the edge of a forest. Evidence suggested that they had attempted to build a fire. Nearby stood a tall tree. Several branches high above the ground had been broken, as though someone had climbed upward in desperation, trying to see something, or perhaps trying to escape something. More bodies were discovered over the following weeks. Some appeared to have been attempting to return to the tent, but none made it back. Months later, the remaining hikers were finally located beneath deep layers of snow, and this is where the mystery became even stranger. Several of the victims had suffered severe internal injuries. The force required to produce such injuries was enormous, yet there were surprisingly few external wounds. Investigators struggled to explain it. What could create injuries of that magnitude in such a remote environment? And why had all of it happened after the group abandoned the safety of the tent? Chapter 5: Theories and Unanswered Questions. Over the decades, countless theories have emerged. Some believe a small avalanche triggered panic. Others suspect secret military activity. Some researchers have proposed unusual wind patterns capable of generating powerful psychological effects. And of course, there are those who believe the explanation lies beyond conventional understanding. The truth is that no theory answers every question. Even today, parts of the incident remain unexplained. The mountain has never revealed exactly what occurred during those final hours, and perhaps it never will. Ending. More than 60 years later, the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident continues to fascinate investigators, historians, and horror enthusiasts around the world. Because at its core, the mystery forces us to confront a terrifying possibility. 9 experienced people faced something on that mountain, something that convinced them to leave behind safety, to leave behind warmth, to leave behind any realistic chance of survival. And whatever they encountered, they never had the opportunity to tell anyone about it. The mountains remain silent. The snow has long since covered their tracks. But one question still echoes through history. What happened that night on Dead Mountain?